Gaming is a hobby many of us enjoy, and for most of us, it's a hobby that we have enjoyed for the majority of our lives. The video game industry has grown and changed so much since the start of our fandom, and we have all grown and changed with it. But how did us growing up affect the games that we played? And how did the games industry's growth affect us as we grew? Welcome to Insert Coin, where we take a walk down memory lane to answer those very questions and discuss our personal history with video games. One quarter at a time. Hey, what's up and welcome to episode 4 of Insert Coin, the interview show where we divide our lives into quarters and talk about all the games and systems we loved during those times. Joining me today is friend of the show and one half of the world's best 30-minute or less Xbox Game Pass podcast, Chris from 1H1D. How are you doing tonight, Chris?
I'm doing well, thank you. And that was a great introduction, and I'm very honored to get that introduction. So
the competition is stiff in that bracket as well. So it's definitely a title you should wear proudly. Now, Chris, I know that 1H1D is an extremely descriptive title, but for those who don't quite get it, could you just explain a little bit what your show is and what you guys do over there?
Sure. So Tom and I started this podcast. We are a Xbox Game Pass podcast in particular. And we talk about the games that we play on a weekly basis that we play for an hour. So we play a random game on Xbox Game Pass for an hour. So we hit the surprise me button and let the random game generator tell us what we're playing for the week. We play it and then we discuss it on the podcast. So we break it down, what we liked, what we didn't like, and if we want to keep playing it after that hour. So that's the gist of the podcast.
Awesome. Yeah. And I got the pleasure of guest hosting on one of their kind of special episodes where they did a roundup, I believe, of the what was it? It was for March Madness, the top first 15 or something like that.
It was the Sweet 16.
Sweet 16.
It was our the first 16 games that we played and kind of determined who the winner was. Unfortunately, that game is not on Game Pass anymore, but that's okay.
Oh man,
it is what it is.
Yeah, that was the first time I got to guest on a show, so I'm really happy to bring it full circle and have you over here. But before we jump into the interview, since the show is still somewhat new at episode 4, I'll give you a little breakdown on how it works. What we do is we're going to divide the guest's age by 4. Use each quarter of their lives as a jump-in point to chat about all the games that they loved during that time, all the fond memories they had while gaming. So, with that being said, Chris, the only thing I need from you is the year that you were born.
You aged me so much, but 1983.
Okay, 1983. So that puts the first quarter in our trip down memory lane to the time between 1983 and 1993. But before we start, let's take a coin and put it into our arcade time machine and take a quick peek into that era of gaming.
Guy, you're the first serious gamer I've seen all morning. Check this out. Brand new 16-bit Super Nintendo with Super Mario World. Wow!
Oh, what's this one?
Oh, this is a Sonic the Hedgehog from Sega Genesis. Hey, look at these radical colors, huh?
Wow, Sonic's fast, too.
No, over here.
I like Genesis, and it costs a lot less.
Wait, kid, that game
I'll take Sonic and Genesis.
Genesis does
16-bit arcade graphics.
You can't do this on Nintendo. Genesis does
16-bit sports action.
You can't do this on Nintendo. Genesis.
You ever try to get to level 10 in your underwear, boy?
Across endless land and water, you search. Deep into a parallel world where light becomes dark, you search. And just when you think your search has ended, you find it's just begun. The new Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past. Now you're playing with power, superpower.
Super Mario All-Stars, so much Mario, it's a Mario smorgasbord. It's utterly doubt Mario Brothers Adventures you ever played and then some. But this is juiced-up 16-bit only on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System Mario. So it's bigger Mario, better Mario, in-your-face Mario. It's Raccoon Mario, Mario throwing fireballs, Mario hurling turnips, Mario negotiating an arms deal. Okay, maybe not. It's Mario like you've never seen him. What's 2 plus 2 Mario? What's the capital of Ohio? Mario. You're gonna live, breathe, eat, sleep Mario. In Super Mario All-Stars, 4 Mario games, including a never-before-seen lost level, so you can't get more Mario than this, which is why the best played here.
So today, folks, people are driving like animals. The turnpike split in two, and a turtle shell is making travel impossible for one motorist. Over on the freeway, it's bumper to bumper, door to door, wheel to wheel, you name it. And check your rear view. Some blockheads are causing major delays. There's already been one accident there. And watch out over on I-94. A banana field is making things a little slippery. And then traffic. With 2-player split-screen action, you've never been in a race like this.
1983 to 1993, the first major console wars began. Sega Genesis versus the Super Nintendo, Sega edgelords versus Nintendo kids. Chris, what games did you play during that era? What was your favorite, and what consoles did you game on, and how did you get them?
First of all, I really appreciate that you had the Genesis does part in that little segue there. It was awesome. That commercial was like burned into my mind and still is. So kudos to that. But
No
in
problem.
terms of in terms of the games, so my history with consoles this time was I only had a Nintendo, and the only way I got that Nintendo was my parents and I were at a store and saw it in a display case. I told them I wanted it, and they said no. So I decided to lay down on the floor and start screaming, and I didn't stop until they bought it. But then after they bought that, they told me never again will they ever buy me a console ever, and they kept that promise. So so that's the only console I've ever received from my parents. And at that time, the games that really stuck with me are definitely Battletoads. That was a game that, for 2 reasons. One, because the game, I love the humor. The difficulty was just excruciating, but also because another side story is I had borrowed my friend's Battletoads, and at the time, there was some other random kid that I was playing Battletoads with, and he asked like, "Hey, can I borrow this game? I'll trade you for." I think he had like an Al Unser Jr. like racing game. I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." I never saw that kid again, so I still have the Al Unser Jr. game, and this kid has my friend's Battletoads game. And to this day, my friend gives me crap about this. And I feel bad. It's like, well, I gave away someone else's game for this. And it wasn't a very good game, to be honest. So those games are like stuck in my head. But like moving forward in the later consoles like Genesis and SNES, I really didn't have that much experience with SNES. It was mostly Genesis. Because a lot of my friends, like, so there was Sonic. Whenever I went over their house, we'd play that. There was a game, I don't know if you ever recall this game, Sunset Riders. Heard of that?
Can't say that I have, no.
It is it's just like another kind of like co-op shooter, side-scrolling shooter of that era.
Like Contra style, or like more like a shmup?
Somewhat, yeah. I would say more like Contra. Okay. I would even almost say, because like there were certain, you're right. It is a Contra style. So Perfect. It's like you're 2 cowboys and doing their thing, shooting your way through the levels.
Nice.
Which also, yes, to your point, yes, I did play a lot of Contra as well on my Nintendo. The other game that that's has still stuck in my head is Turtles in Time. That I constantly play that. That was like my jam for quite some time, and because Turtles was huge and surprisingly still is huge. And I was able to get to play my favorite Ninja Turtle, Raphael, and anyone that says otherwise is wrong. But
That's my favorite Ninja Turtle as well. No question.
Tom hates him.
Well, Tom's not here, so that's what you get. That's like a perfect example of why other fans of other turtles are just.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Raphael was the best. Everyone else can go, do what they want. But yeah, it was such a cool game. I mean, every time you threw the foot soldier into the screen, I thought that was awesome. It was just such a fun beat 'em up, and there was just so much fun with that game. I miss it dearly, and I did hear they're supposed to be making something like a spiritual successor to that, right? Shredder's Revenge, I believe. So
yep, looks dope.
Yeah. Afterburner, like every once in a while, I'd see this a family friend had this Master System. Sorry, I know I'm going back and forth with in terms of the era of systems, but I do remember playing Afterburner on the Sega Master System. But yeah, like these are the like this was like for me, obviously because I actually had a console at the time where I was just excited about like everything. I tried to play Zelda. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I'm sorry to every Nintendo person out there, but
are you talking about NES Zelda or Link to the
NES
Past?
Zelda.
Okay.
I played Link to the Past, but I will never play that game again because every time I tried to play it, the save file would get corrupted, and then I'd lose all my data. So I was like, I'm not playing this game again. So
that's a shame.
Yeah, but it was fun while I did have the opportunity, but like just starting over was just something that I just could not get over. It scarred me for life. So, actually, I apologize. There's one other game in SNES I did play, Chrono Trigger.
Oh yes,
I did play that much later, but it was such a good game. And I think like at this time, if I were to play it now, I probably wouldn't be able to play it because it was such a long game for, I mean, it's a RPG, so there's definitely some time, there's some investment in time that you need to have to play it. So
yeah, absolutely. And there's no achievement, so like, what's the point of playing anything from back then?
Yeah. So yeah.
So would you say that most of the games that you played during that era were like a lot of the games you had mentioned are on Sega Genesis or a Nintendo, like a Super Nintendo? So was the majority of the time that you spent playing a lot of the games that you would consider to be like among your favorite games spent playing them like at your friends' places? Or
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Which is probably explains why a lot of them are like Contra, TMNT, maybe not Sonic, but like Afterburner, like they're more co-op game, or not co-op necessarily, but they're like couch
that's
games.
The thing, right? I mean, that was the thing that I really enjoyed about, like, I mean, I enjoy in general about playing video games. It's like just getting people together and having a good time, just being able to relax and just have fun, right? Like that's the whole purpose of it, and like just having that kind of joy, just sharing that joy with someone else is always a great time.
Exactly. If you had to, would you be able to pick a favorite game from that era? Or even a favorite memory of playing a specific game?
I mean, I think it just goes back to TMNT, the Turtles in Time. That was probably like, because I always had fun playing that game.
And did you ever have to fight over who's going to be able to play as Raphael, or did you have a bunch of weird friends?
Yeah, I had a bunch of everyone loved Leonardo and his stupid swords, and
he wasn't even like, if you're talking about like, if you're trying to be like a MLG pro at Turtles in Time, like you should pick Donatello, like he has the reach, right?
Right, exactly.
So there's no reason that, like, other than that, there's no reason to not pick Raphael.
Right. It's like, I mean, like I appreciate the fact that he probably had the shortest reach, but he had the will, he's like, I'm going out there. I'm doing what I can for my brothers.
Yeah,
So
you can go walk home with your head held high, and you can sleep at night knowing that you played the best Ninja Turtle
right.
by far.
Right.
Well, one question or one kind of thing that often comes up here, which you have avoided because you were able to score your console by screaming and crying in a department store. There's usually, at this point, since we're all around the Santa age, there's usually some awesome Christmas stories related to games. Did you have anything like that you can recall?
There was, well, it wasn't awesome.
Or
it
birthdays.
it was terrible because for some reason or another, I remember in Christmas, we had a very close family friend that stopped by and came, and it was like, "Oh, is your parents home? Here, I just want to drop off this gift." And it was a fairly large gift and it was fairly heavy. And for some reason, I believe it was either the Genesis or the SNES came out. I forget which one came out later, but I was super excited. I was like, "Oh my God, they bought me this system. I'm so excited." I didn't open it. I was so excited. And like, my parents told me to like put it in the closet. We'll only open it in Christmas. And I was like, "Oh God, it's amazing. I can't believe it. Someone's going to get me a new console. This is great." And so I waited bated breath for this day to come. It did. And I got my presents from my parents. They obviously didn't get me any consoles or whatnot. So I tear this thing open because I was like, "Can I open it? Can I see what's in there?" Like, yeah, sure. It ended up being a oh God, what is this? A dish.
Like a plate?
It was like a plate. Like not a plate, but like a large serving bowl. Whatever.
And this was given to you, like you.
It was not. It was not my name. It was not my name. That was the other part that they didn't like properly put on the packaging. But I, for some reason, thought it was for me, and they ended up. It was just a regular like serving bowl for us. I was like, great. Yikes. So my soul was crushed, and it is burned into my head, but it's okay.
Yeah, that's painful. I have something like that happened to me, but I don't know if it was worse because I was older, so I was probably able to move on faster. But I wanted a 360, with the year that they came out, and I think my parents probably would have found a way to get me one because I did end up getting one a little bit like later, like a few months down the road. But you just couldn't buy one; they were just sold out. So I think what happened is they just tried to like scramble because it was like getting close to Christmas and they had no 360 and they just needed to get something, but they didn't want to spend too much because they had the budget to buy me this 360 whenever they could. And I opened up a gift that I thought was a 360 because it was a similar size box, or at least what I expected the box to be. I didn't actually know what the box looked like. And it was a portable DVD player. And then I got so excited because I thought that they had just taken a random box and put a 360 in there, like as a joke. Because like a while back, like they did that when they gave me my Super Nintendo. Mm-hmm. Like they did the box within a box within a box trick, like that every parent seems to do. And so I'm like, they're like surprised because I'm like freaking out. I'm so happy I got this DVD player. Because I didn't have a DVD player in my room, even though my Xbox played DVD. They literally were just panic buying me a gift. This was probably like in the clearance bin at like Sears or something.
Right.
So I ripped the box open and I pull out an actual DVD player. And I'm like, what? There's actually a DVD player in this? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, oh my God, what? And then they explained to me like, we tried, we couldn't. And I was just like, oh. So I was pretty sad and embarrassed. I think you might have just been sad if I understood that story correct.
Yeah, I was crushed totally. But I mean, hey, at least your parents had tried to get you something.
Well, I
You
mean, your
know,
parents told you, like, we're not
yeah,
buying you one. So I don't know
I
why you
don't,
had this
you
expectation.
know, like, they're my parents. I figured, hey, they're just saying that just to say it. Like I say that to my kids all the time. Like, I'm not going to get you anything. I'm not going to get you a PS5. I didn't get them a PS5, but I did. I'm not going to get the Miles Morales game, but I did. So it's like that was my mentality, and then there's my parents. So be it. I'm working through it, so it's fine.
Awesome. Well, I think that will bring an end to the first quarter era of your still going life. This isn't like I have to have this kind of disclaimer every time I do one of these podcasts. When we get to the final quarter, it's the final quarter of the show, not the final quarter of your life. So don't worry about that. But we're going to move on to quarter number 2, which is 1994 to 2003.
One of the most eagerly awaited video games finally goes on sale.
Preparing to rewrite retail history.
Video game is expected to have bigger first-day revenues than any movie has ever had an opening day at the box office.
The latest video game war is heating up tonight. Nintendo's GameCube system is about to hit the stores.
Far from the Mushroom Kingdom, among a people enchanted by sunshine, Mario has taken a break from the hopping, the bopping, and saving the princess.
All to fulfill his destiny, which is, above all else, to save me.
The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker.
Good afternoon, I'm Donna Gregory. And I'm Heidi Deja. There are waiting lists and tickets just to stand in line and get a chance to buy PlayStation 2.
A story of one man's struggle to save mankind from extermination and his quest to win the heart of the woman he loves.
And a new myth will be written in the blood of the old. God of War, rated M for mature.
Just like the Xbox, it is truly the future of video games, and I'm very excited to simply be a part of it if you smell what The Rock is cooking.
I just got into Xbox Live. I have this really great high-speed connection, and
I need a weapon.
There are those who said this day would never come. What are they to say now?
Rated M for mature.
1994 to 2003. As one warrior falls, two shall take its place, as is the creed of the console wars. With Sega's defeat by Nintendo, PlayStation and Xbox stepped up to the plate for the mantle of console war dominance. Also, the most influential game since Mario launched, which would bring gaming to a new frontier, which is powered by broadband internet. Chris, what games and consoles did you play during this era? What was your favorite, and how did you get them?
Okay. Just to preface that though, Sega was still there. They did die at the tail end of this quarter, but
it's all encompassing, man.
I know. I will always have a soft spot for Dreamcast, always, because that system was such a it was ahead of its time. Like, I actually just had this conversation with someone. It was so ahead of its time with like the online play, the way the controller was set up. It formed so much. Like, you could see it. Like, you could see it did, and like how everyone else kind of like followed after it. And kudos to Sega for trying, but unfortunately it didn't last. But,
so let's jump into this a little bit, because I hear people say that the Dreamcast was ahead of its time, like, very often. And as somebody who, at this point in time, 1999, that's when it came out, right? 9999.
Yep.
I was 9 years old, so I didn't have the ability to just like have all the consoles, or really, I almost didn't even have the ability to decide what one console I would get. So I had a PS1, which I had gotten a little late. So there's no chance in hell I was going to get a a Dreamcast when it came out, and by the time it was like available to be bought, I had like kind of seen the early hype building for the Xbox. So all I know about the Dreamcast is that one, it died. Two, it didn't have any DRM, which was the cause of death. And memory cards were Tamagotchis, and it looked like the controller was half an Xbox controller. That's all I know. So tell me why it was ahead of its time.
I mean, think about this. You had a massively multiplayer online game, Phantasy Star Online, right? That was, you were able to play that game pretty well with a modem. Like, think about that now. If you were trying to play like WoW on 56K modem or something like that, like it was like they did something with like some magic to get netcode to work really well on that system. And the Dreamcast had like, I would say probably it was like the best system for fighting games. You had everything. You had Marvel vs. Capcom. You had Capcom. You had Street Fighter. All the Street Fighters, like Fighter 2 to like 3, Third Strike. And then you had Capcom versus SNK and SNK 2, which was amazing. And of course, the one game I hope Capcom brings back is Power Stone.
I hear about that game so much. I have no idea what it is.
It was so
so I do know people that like are Dreamcast fans. I've never asked them this question to explain to me like why, but every time that it's mentioned, the game Power Stone comes up. I haven't even seen a trailer for this game. All I know is that you fight people in it. And I just
I mean it is a obviously fighting. Oh my god, and of course Virtua Fighter was on there too. But yeah, so it was an arena-based fighter, so it was a full 3D fighter, and like at the time, you know, everything was pretty much like 2D plane. Like you got the Mortal Kombat, you got obviously the Street Fighters and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But like this was so unique, so different from everything else, where it's like you're fighting, but you're like in an actual arena. Like you can move around everywhere. I like just X and Y, but the Z axis as well. So. And then like the characters all were I thought fair, like great, because Capcom did such a great job with their character designs like that. And I think, if I recall correctly, it's been a minute, but after a certain point, I think if you collect certain power-ups, your character kind of like transforms into its like his ultimate form, or his or her ultimate form. So it was just like all that. I think it was almost, if I want to say this, it was almost like the beginning, or like maybe the ideas of like taking some of the ideas of Smash Brothers, where there's power ups and stuff like that throughout the like spread out throughout the world.
Okay.
Your stages, while having like the technical,
like
combos
not being on
and stuff like that. Right. Well, the technical combos of like a Street Fighter and stuff like that.
Okay.
So
yeah. See, I knew there had to be some twist. I knew it couldn't have just been like a basic B fighting game. So it's like a Smash Brothers kind of brawler, but without the but with the complex like combo systems of like a Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, etc. in a 3D arena. With, you said there's power ups. So is there like weapons too? Or?
I think power ups are what get you to your like ultimate. So like think of it as like you're filling up your EX meter or whatnot in Street Fighter. So or like your Marvel vs. Capcom, that meter, like that's how you would fill up that meter, I believe.
And those are power stones that you pick up?
They are power stones, yes. Whoa. That's how you did it.
Does every character have a gauntlet that they all go in? Infinity gauntlet, perhaps?
No, they don't have
missed opportunity.
Yeah, it is what it is, but it's fine. But yeah, I mean, Dreamcast was just the reason why I had such an attachment to this was the first console that I actually brought home that I purchased myself. Okay. I won't say that I actually purchased it legally, quote unquote.
Stole it?
I didn't steal it. I did not steal it. But I did.
It fell off a truck.
I did purchase it with coupons. Stolen goods, because GameStop had no idea of checking where you got your games that you traded in, but you know, that's a different story. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, I got my Dreamcast. Actually, my friend, me and like two of my friends got my Dreamcast that way, or got our Dreamcast that way, and we we just had a good time, man. It was fun. Like all the sports games are awesome, and that's where Visual Concepts now became 2K Sports.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there were so many games that just like came out from this system, and it was just awesome. Jet Set Radio, I think originally on Dreamcast, and then it was called Jet Grind Radio.
Just Jet Grind Radio, and then Jet Set
Yeah.
Radio Future was Xbox. Yep.
Yeah, and so yeah, it was so cool. It was such a cool system. But obviously, before that, and like around that, I had friends that had PlayStation 1s and 64s and PlayStation 2s, obviously, and like PlayStation 2, obviously, I was, or rather, PlayStation 1 was the first time I was just so surprised at what you could do, how you could interact with the player. And the game that did that for me, obviously, was Metal Gear Solid. So
it's undefeated. I was waiting to see. I was seeing if you were going to be the first one to not mention Metal Gear Solid, but no.
I'm sorry, but like it was such
not a bad thing.
It's such a groundbreaking game for that system, and you know, still to this day, I mean, Kojima broke that fourth, you know, that barrier between the player and the system, and like the character itself. So,
did you have a remote controller?
I didn't. My friend had a remote controller. I watched him do it. So he was like, you know, put the controller down. And he told him to move it around, and it was just crazy. It like blew my mind. Yeah, like, how is he doing this? Like, what's going on? And then like how you had to actually beat him was, you know, you swap the controller from player 1 to player 2. Spoilers. I'm sorry. Now this game's pretty old now, so if you didn't know, now you know. But you know, it is what it is, and
it's probably one of the best boss fights like of all time to this day.
100%. And I think he tried to do it with Metal Gear Solid 3 with what's the guy's name? The End.
I didn't play that game. The End is a really old sniper guy. I know that because I've seen him in the manual, but I don't know anything about that game. Yeah, I still have to play it.
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't get very far with it because they added all that inventory, like the taking care of Snake process, where you had to eat, you had to sleep, etc. I was like, I'm out. Like, I don't want to deal with this. But from what I've heard, with the way to beat the End, one of the ways you can beat him is if you go into your system time and you change it to like a year or something like that later, he dies
of old age.
Of old age.
Well, so what happens if you play that game today in 2021? He's just dead as soon as you boot the game up?
Well, I mean, I think it takes the current date as like
of your like first save file.
Right.
Okay.
And then like
he thinks of everything, Kojima, man.
He does. He really does. It's mind-boggling. And later on, like, because when I went to college and stuff like that, I had friends that had the PlayStation and PS2 and etc. So, you know, I got a chance to play games like Parappa the Rapper, which was, you know, like one of the first rhythm games. It was so cool to be involved or play that game. And then much like near the end of my college time, I got an opportunity to someone influenced me to get an Xbox. So that was I purchased an Xbox after.
With legal tender?
With legal tender, yes.
Nice.
I ended up, and the reason why I wanted to get it was for Splinter Cell, well, specifically Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. And because I mean, when I saw the first Splinter Cell come out, and the fact that like how much you can at the time interact with the world, like shooting out the lights and like dragging the bodies and stuff. I mean, yeah, Hitman was there, but like it was just so cool. Like being able to utilize that, like being in the dark and all that stuff. I loved that concept. And then Chaos Theory brought in the whole thing of there's that multiplayer mode. So
Spies vs. Mercs.
Yeah, exactly. And it was such a cool time. I mean, what was it, 2v2? And
so Spies vs. Mercs came out actually with Pandora tomorrow, the second Splinter Cell, and that was 2v2. I think the third one was also 2v2. They just made a bunch of changes to the mode, so they could have added a 3v3. I'm not 100% sure. Okay. One thing that they did change was they changed like the mercs could have different weapons, which really changed the game a lot for me.
Okay.
You can have a shotgun, which was really OP, or the standard AR, or like an SMG, I believe. But I personally think Pandora was the best multiplayer. But
you know what? And I think oh my god, this entire time I've been saying the wrong game. Yes, the second Splinter Cell game is what I'm talking about. That's not Chaos Theory, but Pandora Tomorrow was the one that I purchased with my Xbox.
Yeah, for me that was the Halo 2 before Halo 2. That was the only game that was in my disk drive. Just playing Warehouse over and over and over and over and over again.
So it was so good. It was so good. And I had an opportunity to my parents, though they never bought me a system, they allowed me to rent an N64 for my birthday. So I would do that every once in a while, and we play through what are the games? Smash Brothers, obviously, and Bomberman 64, which is really fun. And finally, Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey. That game was... I just have fond memories of the game because the fact that you could just stop playing the game and just start beating each other up. That was amazing. And it just happened again. It was the being able to have my friends over and just all of us just laughing, having a good time playing whatever game. I don't think it really mattered what game it was, but it was just fun to have everyone together and having a good time. So
yeah, and Nintendo 64, I think the one I had a PS1, but the one thing that Nintendo 64 did have was which was somewhat innovative, I think, was the 4 controller ports. And for you, as somebody who really likes couch gaming and just like IRL, like the social aspect of gaming, that must have been a pretty huge thing. When you rented a console, I rented PS1s before I got one. I never touched N64 outside of going to my friend's house. But when you rented N64, did they give you 4 controllers?
I believe they did.
Dang.
Yeah.
And you never played GoldenEye?
We did, but I was never really good at it, so I just watch people play it. So I hated that controller though. I hated it.
It was designed by someone that has 3 hands. The one man in the world with 3 hands designed that controller. Bad mistake.
And my friend did have an N64. I forgot about this. When Mario 64 came out, it was mind blowing because I think about Splinter Cell being able to control the lights and stuff, being able to that analog stick and being able to control how much either Mario is just kind of walking or running. That blew my mind. That was such a big thing for me, being able to control that kind of movement.
That was a launch title for N64, right?
Yeah.
So that would have come out before the DualShock controller for PS1.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, no, that would have been a pretty big deal.
It was very cool times. But so, I mean, I didn't have an opportunity to play a GameCube that much, but the others, Saturn, I don't think I knew anyone that had a Sega Saturn. So that was the end times, like you said, the end times of Sega at that. So
at what point did you kind of realize it was all over for the Dreamcast?
Well, the fact that I could download every game on just a regular CD drive was probably when I knew that.
Good point, actually. I guess it never really dies at that point.
Yeah, you could always play a game, and that was great. But they can't sustain a business with people buying or not even buying them, at retail. So.
Yeah, if only they had Game Pass for Dreamcast.
yes, they needed that.
Even rhymes, man. It's perfect. Yep. What were they thinking?
What a shame.
All right. So 1994 to 2003. Do you think that you could pick one game that would be your favorite or define kind of that era? Tough question, I know.
Yeah, that is a tough question. I didn't even talk about Def, because I think that was a PS2 game, right?
Which game? You're kind of broke up there for me.
Def Jam Vendetta.
Yeah, well so that was on PS2. It was also on was it on there is a Def Jam game on Xbox. I own it. I don't know if it's Vendetta or Fight for New York. Fight for New York was on 360, right? So I think it was Vendetta that was on both.
Yeah. That game was amazing. I forgot about that. I remember watching you play it again, and it was like it just brought me back. It was such a unique game.
I did a stream with that. Yeah. No, that game was pretty good. I think there had been like some celebrity games before, but they were never really. Well, they were always kind of like AA or kind of like cash-in games, whereas Def Jam, and there could be something else that I'm missing, and I'm not counting like Wayne Gretzky's hockey or something like that. I'm talking like celebrities that really have no business being in a video game,
right?
That are in one. And Def Jam, it felt like they made a really awesome AAA fighting game with a pretty interesting story mode for its time. And then after they built a good game, then they got the licenses instead of making the game specifically for the licenses, which was evident when you play it. And that's why I got a sequel. And that's why it's so memorable.
Yeah. That's another game they need to either remaster or remake or whatever. Like that needs to happen like ASAP.
Yeah, definitely. I just think the licensing might be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Or who knows? I feel like you know what? I feel like a lot of the I can't remember off the top of my head like every single fighter in the roster, but I don't think a lot of those people are really getting most of them are not currently rapping anymore.
Yeah.
I would assume that they still get some residual income from like radio playback and Spotify and stuff like that, but it can't be like what they were used to getting. So they might be open to whatever they can get in terms of their licensing fees. So.
I mean, or they could just use the new school of rappers. I don't know, whatever they want to do.
I wouldn't play that. What new school rappers? Who like Def Jam Mumble, Royal Mumble, Def Jam Royal Mumble. Can't wait to play that.
I'm just as long as there is that, the same gameplay, I would possibly do it. I would probably play it. I'm not gonna lie, even if it's like
hesitant.
I'm just saying. It's
all right. Okay, well that brings us to the end of quarter 2. Let's jump into quarter 3, which will be 2004 to 2013. But again, before we start, let's drop a coin into that arcade time machine and take a quick look at 2004 to 2013 in video games.
We would like to play.
Do you have what it takes to wield the sword? The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword.
My past is not a memory. What's past is prologue.
Albion. A land bursting with life, beauty, and light. Its people unaware of the darkness that awaits them.
In darkness, a doom sweeps the land. These are the closing days of the Third Era and the final hours of my life.
You're competing with a psychopathic war criminal for a mythological gemstone?
I killed people, smuggled people, sold people.
When you put it that way, it does sound pretty stupid. Yeah, thanks for the input, Jeff.
I know what this nation needs. I will give you justice.
You are, all of you, vermin.
Tomorrow we launch the greatest military campaign in our history.
Your world will burn until its surface is but glass.
Cocky bastard just loves to run his mouth. I didn't come here to run from the Hellgas. Order the attack!
Shipmaster, they outnumber us 3-1.
Then it is an even fight. Where are we going? To finish what we started!
Master Chief, you mind telling me what you're doing on that ship?
Sir, finishing this fight.
2004 to 2013. Next-gen HD consoles brought in a next-gen HD format war, and Nintendo got crushed under the pixel power of Xbox and PS2. But it's not always the strongest who wins, as Nintendo would switch how we control our games. Chris, what games and consoles did you play during this era? What was your favorite? And do you remember how you got them?
Okay. During this time, I was full on. This is where I started to really pick a side, and I went with the 360.
Smart.
And I totally was a fanboy at heart. I would trash PlayStation all the time.
On the internet?
Well, no, just with my friends. I just trash talk with them, and the Wii. And I was like, what is this? Is dumb. But, you know, the more I think about it, there was like so many games that I played or I envied that were on the PlayStation and on the Wii. That, like, you know, obviously the Uncharted series was phenomenal. I loved that whole Indiana Jones vibe to it. The adventure and the banter and all that stuff, and it looked gorgeous. The game was gorgeous. I know I haven't talked about Halo, but there's a reason for that, and it's like I just wasn't very good at the game. I mean, I enjoyed the single player, but like multiplayer, where everyone talks about it, I was awful. So I appreciate what it did for multiplayer and gaming in general, but it's like it just wasn't my jam at the time. But 360, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm willing to play it, but if you're willing to put up with my shitty play, then I'll play it with you. It's fine. So it's just that, yeah. I just realized this game just squeaked out of this era, but Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, that came out in November of 2003. But oh my god, I love this game, and I cannot wait for the remake. It was like the music, the characters, the gameplay, you know, the game mechanics were just so good. I love this game, and you know, the Two Thrones was junk. Or no, Two Thrones is good. Warrior Within was meh.
Well, you didn't like the edgy soundtrack?
I was like, what is going on with this?
And all the blood?
It was like, all right.
I got that for Christmas the year it came out.
Did you?
And I was at the perfect age to think it was the coolest thing I ever seen.
Oh man. Well, I'm sorry. Or maybe not. And like, but Prince of, like, the one that came out that people didn't really like, but I love the art style, was that the Prince of Persia that came out on the 360 in 2008.
Yeah, that was great.
The art style was amazing, and it was. I think people were kind of like, "What the hell?" Like, you can't really die because that, essentially, like, your fairy
time reversal. Yeah,
yeah, she always like come and save you and all that stuff. Okay, but 360 was the game that probably defined this time period for me. Was actually Rock Band. I loved playing that game. I always would try to. I was the kid that would bring every instrument to my friend's house to play it, because like he had like this setup where like his parents were awesome enough to like set him up with like this garage, and like where he put all his systems out there and all that stuff. I would just bring the instruments, and we would just, you know, drink a couple of beers and friggin' just go to town on these games. But it was so fun just to be able to kind of karaoke and stuff like that during
Did
that
you play
era.
Guitar Hero or did you just jump straight into Rock Band?
I did play Guitar Hero, but like Rock Band, like being able to play the different instruments, being able to sing and all this stuff, especially when you're drunk, it's always fun. So,
yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have like a kind of a crazy Rock Band thing I think you might find interesting or at least be jealous of. So I used to work at Best Buy around the time that Rock Band came out. And for some reason, like it sold out everywhere, and it probably sold out everywhere where you are as well. But the place that I worked at, like they were able to like pre-sell them because the only reason why they kept selling out, at least in Canada, was because it was hard to ship a lot of them because of how big it was. It's not like a disc, right? The stock existed. It just was hard to get it from point A to point B. So they let stores kind of pre-sell them. And then when it showed up, you would pick it up or whatever. But they wanted to try to sell as many as they could because they had this inventory and they were afraid that it would eventually kind of not sell anymore. And then there would be these huge boxes sitting in their warehouse that they couldn't get rid of. Yes. So during the holidays, we actually had an employee whose job it was to play Rock Band all day. He sat in the game department and just played Rock Band and tried to get customers to play it so that they would like it and then buy it. That was his job. He got paid more. He even got paid more than minimum wage too.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
So it's quite the gig. But it wasn't me. I sold iPods. But yeah, thought you might find that interesting.
That's awesome.
And honestly, Rock Band is the only other game other than Metal Gear Solid that's been I think brought up on every episode. So
okay.
Way to conform.
I'm sorry, but it's like it was just that was. I mean, obviously, Parappa the Rapper like laid the groundwork, but like they took it to another level with plastic instruments and being able to, belt out AC/DC. Like they had that whole expansion track for that, and it was good times.
What's your favorite song to play?
Probably be
Green Grass and High Tides.
I'm pretty. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Queen was on there. So anything Queen, I love. I'm gonna double check that before people start yelling at me that you.
I can't remember if Queen was on there. I'll tell you that the hardest song I think in Rock Band 1 was Green Grass and High Tides. That was kind of their version of Through the Fire and Flames. Although Through the Fire and Flames was significantly harder. I think my favorite song. I'll just waste time while you Google this if that's what you're doing. I think the best song to play, if you consider all instruments, on Rock Band 1, I'm pretty sure it's Rock Band 1 and not 2. It was Say It Ain't So by Weezer. I would play the guitar and vocals at the same time, and it was really, really fun.
Yes, that was a good song. I mean, it is a good song and cool that there was a Queen pack actually. So yeah, and yeah, Fat Bottom Girls. That was my jam right there.
That was your jam.
Yeah, that was fun. Fun times. I enjoyed that. But I mean, of course, like I said, the Uncharted. We got the Halos. We got WarioWare. Not WarioWare. Was it WarioWare?
For Wii?
They had a Wario Smooth Moves, I think, right?
I never played Wii, man. I do recall there being like a party game that was Wario focused.
Yes.
I couldn't tell you the exact title though.
Yep. WarioWare Smooth Moves was the name of the game. I actually had to go back and buy it again. I'm actually staring at it right now, but I don't have my Wii anymore, so I just have the game.
I got one in my closet. It's not mine.
Nice.
It's my girlfriend's. Yeah.
Nice.
So in this era, it happened right before this era, but it came to be extremely prominent and quite revolutionary, I would say, in the game sphere in this era, which kind of contradicts kind of how you most enjoyed to play games up until this point. and that's the kind of introduction and kind of mainstreamification, I guess, for lack of a better term, of Xbox Live and PlayStation Network, or just online gaming with consoles in general. So I'm wondering if you partook in this, I'm sure you did, and how it affected you playing games in person. I kind of think, this is a guess, and you can tell me if I'm right, that perhaps outside of you just liking rhythm games, Rock Band would be kind of a excuse to get off of Xbox Live, and get together in person and play games.
Oh yeah, for sure. I believe, I mean, because I would play Gears of War all the time, and that was obviously online.
Mhm.
And every once in a while, I would buy Halo, but I just wouldn't be good at, like I said. So
Do you think you're better at Gears of War versus Halo?
Maybe slightly better.
There you go.
Better. It's just the kind of the
got a
the
chainsaw.
fact that I'm well, yeah, the chainsaw is very nice, but being able to like see my surroundings outside of my peripheral was helpful, at least for me. But actually, the more I think about it, though, I did outside of Rock Band and maybe like say Gears and stuff like that. I definitely did a lot of like single player games. Like I was thinking about it again. Like, I played through God of War like probably 3 times.
PS2 God of War, like the first one?
Yeah.
Nice.
That God of War and then God of War 2, and just like it was just such a cool concept. And kind of taking that Greek mythology and just kind of basically tearing it to shreds, and it's a good old time.
Wait, you tried to tell me this stuff never really happened?
I mean, it might have. It's up to your interpretation, sure. So in this case, it's David Jaffe's interpretation.
So one kind of I don't know if it's right to call it a trope, but a gaming genre that kind of really came to power, or not to power, but really became super popular in this generation, which is most likely because the power of the consoles also became kind of good enough to handle these on a wider scale, was open world games. You have a lot of games like Elder Scrolls, like Grand Theft Auto 4 was a huge one, Red Dead Redemption. There was even like AA games that started to have these huge open worlds, like Two Worlds or Might and Magic, all kinds of big open world games like that. Did any of those kind of catch your attention? Because it seems like a lot of the stuff that you've been playing or that you've mentioned in all of the years are more so a little bit more linear.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about this a lot on the podcast, but when you're kind of like just dropped into a world and you're just like, they're like, here you go do your thing. I'm like, yeah, I'm closing this game. I'm out. Like, I like there to be some sort of direction. And yeah, I like Grand Theft Auto for sure had its missions and stuff like that. But I don't know, like everyone was like, yeah, into GTA 3, 4, Vice City, all that stuff. But I just didn't really get into those open world games because I just felt intimidated by the fact that like you actually had like a laundry list of things to do. And I'm like, all right, I'm out. Let me just go play my God of War or Gears or something like that. Like, at least they kind of guide me to where here, this is what you need to do. This is the only thing you need to do. It's like, okay, cool. I don't need to go like, check on my house or steal this from said person, whatever,
For sure. Yeah, at the time I was kind of like amazed technically, I guess, by them.
Yeah.
And I still to this day really, really love Morrowind and Oblivion, and to a slight lesser extent the Fallout games. But I like, it seemed like every game, especially towards the end of this era, every game was kind of opting for that because it was kind of in vogue at that time. And I kind of started to feel kind of the way you're feeling, like getting burnt out.
Yeah.
It kind of also bled in, I think, a little bit to the next generation especially with Ubisoft. And that kind of really, I started to really feel it by then. And that's honestly kind of what led me into kind of really enjoying the PlayStation exclusive, like God of War, or even more modern ones and stuff like that. One thing this might be a stupid question, but like, so the concept of theme parks, I guess, is kind of brought up with this debate. So there's like the theme park where you can go into the theme park and you can ride all the rides that they made for you to ride, or you can go into like a big sandbox and build your own theme park that'll be exactly the way you want it to be. Like there's two different types of people that would like one or the other. And the people that like theme park A typically buy iPhones, and the people that buy like theme park B typically like Android phones. So I'm curious, what kind of phone do you have, man?
I actually have an Android.
Oh my God, you hypocrite! I actually knew that. That's what I was setting you up. It was a setup.
I mean, yeah. I'm sorry, but
Androids are like the open world game of phones.
Yeah, but but
you
that's
get intimidated by all these like widgets.
I know I don't. Because I kind of like stay in my lane with that stuff, because they have. I mean, for sure. Like when Android started, it was very much like a Wild West. Like they've gotten better at trying to kind of corral or kind of tighten the restrictions here and there, but.
We don't have to go down this rabbit hole. I was just pulling your leg. All right. So 2004 to 2013. If there's any games you missed, feel free to bring them up. But is there any game that you've mentioned so far that you would say is your favorite or the most impactful game of this era of your life so far?
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with Rock Band for sure. That was my jam, pun intended.
Do you still have your kit, or did they break?
I have pieces of it. I actually went to my parents' house and the guitar was still there, or both of the guitars I had. I think the stand for my drums were there, but it was a lost cause at this point.
It is kind of a shame that like those games with those like peripherals like that don't really exist anymore. Like,
yeah,
it sucks because they did try to bring it back, but they tried to bring it back in such a horrible way, especially Guitar Hero with how it was monetized. It was DOA, and it's actually dead now. Like you can barely play Guitar Hero anymore because like did you follow that at all when it came out? The newest one, World Tour, I think it was called.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so they had a new guitar, which was really honestly well engineered. It had like the frets were it had 2 rows. Mm-hmm. So you had to like press like the top red button and the bottom red button, whatever, which gave you a lot more complex kind of strings to hit. But the way that they monetized it was the game came out and shipped with like a very low amount of songs on the game. There was like 15, 20. And then you had to pay a monthly fee to access this massive library of songs. But that nobody paid that because that is like not how anyone expected to have to pay for this game. Right. And so it was very unsuccessful. And then they killed that service like almost like a year after. Like it was very quickly. They killed that service and you could only play the games that shipped with it. And the guitar is not backwards compatible with the old Guitar Heroes because it has a new kind of fret system. Mm-hmm. So it's like just a piece of junk right now, unless you really like those like 15 to 20 songs it came with, which aren't great.
Oh, what a shame.
What a shame. Cool. Well, Rock Band is definitely a good choice. Definitely is one of the main kind of things that brought people together in that era. Well, online gaming kind of pulled them apart. So I think that era of video games really, really needed Rock Band. And I think that's why a lot of people like yourself find it so memorable. Mm-hmm. But that does it for 2004 to 2013. We're moving on to the final quarter of the show, which would be 2014 to present day. But before we start, let's put one more coin into that arcade time machine and take a quick peek at what gaming was like during that era.
Path to be clear. This is my favorite part. Exciting.
Eyes up, Guardian. It worked. You're alive. You're gonna see a lot of things you won't understand.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Game Awards.
Fuck the Oscars, you know? Fuck the Oscars!
And the winner for Game of the Year 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020 is...
Xbox Max.
Evil is evil. Lesser, greater, middling, makes no difference.
Evil the hell can conjure. All the wickedness that mankind can loose. We will send unto them only you.
Don't worry, loves. Cavalry's here.
This is how you share your games on PS4.
Boy.
Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Xbox One.
TV and movies? TV. Xbox. Watch TV.
Sports. Sport television.
Call of Duty. Call of Duty. Call of Duty. Call of Duty.
Hey, you. Finally awake.
Today, I'm pleased to announce Xbox One backward compatibility. Project Scorpio will be the next addition to the Xbox One family.
Xbox Game Pass, a way to give gamers the ultimate freedom to play.
ZeniMax has an amazing track record of building great games. Next holiday, Xbox Series X will lead us into the future of console gaming.
I think you are now ready to hear what happened 100 years ago.
2014 to present day. As one king falls, a new one rises, while PlayStation takes over Xbox 360's reign from the last generation. But desperate times calls for desperate measures as Xbox looks to level the playing field with Game Pass, all while Nintendo switches things up once again. Chris, what games are you currently playing? What games are your current favorites? What consoles are you playing them on, and how did you get it?
Oh, well, I want to say this was such an interesting era, and especially seeing Microsoft kind of squirm to try and, because they totally screwed up the Xbox One, the launch.
100%, and I think me and you both went into that.
Yes,
being a huge homer for the green team, and had to live through that.
Oh yeah, I had to grin and bear it because like all my friends, because they all had 360s and they just switched to the PlayStation, and they never looked back because it's just like, oh, this, like, they have all the great the exclusives and stuff like that. But it was just amazing to see that Microsoft kind of be like, okay, look, we're back on our heels. Let's figure this out. Let's try to make this, and kudos to them to allowing Phil Spencer to do his thing and just turn the ship around.
He saved the whole thing.
Yeah, because Game Pass, like like for this era, I can't even pick a game because Game Pass is just giving me so many options on games to play, and because like I could pick a game like I don't know, like currently I could say I'm playing Knockout City, but there's stuff like The Ascent or the little like indie title games that I've gotten the opportunity to play, like Sea of Solitude and like Bloodroots, stuff like that, where I was just very surprised about these kind of games that were there and available with a low price, and it was awesome. And also seeing the total opposite, almost opposite nature of what Sony was doing, where they're just like, nope, every game is $60 or $70, and that's it. Like you pay for it, and that's that. but it's been an interesting time, and I can't this time there's just been so many games that I've just been pleasantly surprised with, and I can't even put to words with like how happy I am with the service. Like the service is what I could say for this era has been awesome.
Okay, well, maybe this will make this a bit easier then. Let's
Okay.
we're definitely going to talk about Game Pass because I think it's very relevant to this era, specifically with you since you spawned an entire podcast about it. But to make the question I just asked you a little bit easier to answer, how about we focus on the pre-Game Pass era of Xbox One and
Okay.
PS4? So like I'm assuming your story is similar to mine. You just literally went up to a store, gave the money, walked home, and had an Xbox in terms of how you got it. But what games did you get at launch?
Xbox. Oh, well, I bought the Xbox with Titanfall. I bought that, and that game was, granted, that one didn't have multiplayer. Titanfall 2 had probably one of the best single player game campaigns. Short, but it was a great campaign. It did such a good job of like explaining the mechanics and like you using those mechanics like the next level or next section, and like it was great. And of course the multiplayer was crazy, but it was so fun. But like, yeah, Titanfall was amazing. I'm sad to hear that or not hear, but to see that it kind of devolved into this battle royale of Apex Legends. Not that I'm not hating on Apex Legends, but I would love to see a Titan at least drop on one of these maps,
Just
like
in the background somewhere.
yeah, just in the background, or like just one decommissioned somewhere. That would be awesome. I would love that. But what else? In terms of games here during this era, definitely a lot of the whatchamacallit, the Uncharted games again. I was super excited about that, and like I had to get a PlayStation just for that game. On the Xbox, again, Gears is always something that I kept playing and kept bringing up. And Darksiders was fun.
Yeah, I think that started on Xbox 360, but it was a late 360 title.
Yeah,
and 2 was also on 360.
Oh,
I think it was on both.
Ooh.
Not even a cross-gen.
What else was there? I have to think of it because it was Xbox was pretty bare. I have to admit at the beginning. Dang, I have to think about this now.
Some of the bigger games that I can recall kind of don't really fit what you typically enjoy. Like a lot of people would say their favorite game is The Witcher 3 or Grand Theft Auto.
Okay, I forget that.
5. There's Halo or Halo Guardians, Halo 5 Guardians. For me, which probably doesn't apply to you, Destiny was a huge one.
Destiny was cool. I enjoyed it, but my problem was always I was chasing after my friends in terms of they would be leveling, they would be like already at the end game, and I'm still at like not even finishing the campaign yet. So this was the time where like online gaming for me was frustrating, because a lot of it was this kind of, oh, you got to get to the end game to actually really play the game. And then I would just be so slow at playing these games that everyone would just be like, oh, come on, man, like I can walk you through it. And it was frustrating. It was really frustrating.
Yeah, it's also kind of tough to recall like your memorable games from like the present day or like close to the present day, because there's just not enough time quite for those memories to kind of manifest in terms of being like super memorable like some of the older games are. But there's still some interesting stuff that happened in this generation. One question I have for you is how long did it take from the reveal of the Xbox One until you realize that this is like a problem, like what they're doing is not working, and I maybe not as far as regret making the purchase of an Xbox One, but kind of really questioning like what's going to happen in the future. Because for me, I wouldn't necessarily say I was like a hardcore fanboy, but I was definitely justifying to my friends and to others the decisions that they were making at the time.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people were like, oh, like no more used games. And I was like, oh, but you can get digital. You can like, there was some pros to it. In hindsight, it's really not that great. But theoretically, being able to swap and trade a digital license is something that's still not really a thing, but it would have been really cool.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
obviously,
like some of the things
Connect
that
as well. Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh man. Some of the oh yeah, I bought like every accessory for the Xbox too.
Same.
So like the chat pad was on the 360, but I think they brought it on the
Yeah, no, they had one. They had one.
And
it was the only way at the time that you could control your headset audio from the controller. So it was kind of good to have.
Right. And yeah, like you said, the Connect was everyone made fun of it, but it was such a cool idea because obviously the Wii, you needed the sensor bar and all that stuff. Yes, this the camera system became the sensor bar, but it was cool not to be able to have a specific controller. Like it just followed your movements. Maybe not very well, but it was a novelty item. And it was also kind of, I think it was Phil started doing his thing when he pulled the Connect from console. Was that like around his era?
I don't think that was necessarily him. It was something they did early when they realized like this is just not working. I think it was within the first year. So I think that was like 2014 when they started selling it without Connect. It was also kind of a way for them to artificially lower the price of the console. So they dropped the cost, I think, by $100 by not including a component that cost them almost $100 to make. So it wasn't really a price drop for them in terms of their margins, but it was still a price drop for customers. But Phil was like, when Phil brought out, like one of the first things that I'm sorry if this is going in a tangent, but like I love talking about Xbox and Phil Spencer. I'm a stan. So he said that he had 3 goals. One was to fix the hardware, one was to fix the service, and one was to fix the software. And he said this fixing the software is the hardest thing to do because games take forever to make, especially when you at that point in time don't have the studios to make them. So he had to do the acquisitions, and then we're still not at that point yet, even though it seems like it's right around the corner now. Fixing the hardware, though, was something that he was able to do really quickly. And one of the first things he did was launch the Xbox One S, the thinner one, and that famously didn't have the Kinect port on it. Right. They sold that adapter separately that you could get for free, which is really great. I actually got one for free, and I use it on my PC to use my Kinect as a webcam. So I'm thankful that I was able to get that for free. But that was the first because they still sold the Kinect version with the non-Kinect version. Like it was still something that they were supporting. But at that point, that they really strayed far away from their original messaging, which was the Kinect is Xbox and you can't have one without the other, to it's optional. It doesn't even work out of the box anymore.
Yeah. Going back and thinking, some of the games that kind of blew me away during this time period also was the Batman games, like Arkham Knight was amazing. Because it was great to finally see a licensed like Batman game that was really good and like did the character and his world justice. So, and of course, having Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, chef's kiss. That was great. Also, I didn't finish the game. I loved the concept of the game. Was Middle Earth: Shadow of Mordor.
Yeah, the Nemesis system is really cool.
System was so cool, and I didn't realize it until like I did a little research about the developers, which I believe is Monolith.
Yep.
And they did so many like games that in the past that I loved, which was like I think you and I talked about Condemned Criminal Origins. I think, and they did No One Lives Forever, Shogo. That game.
Did they do Fear?
They did Fear. Yes, they did
Yes.
Fear as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that like they
No One
did
Lives
some
Forever
great-
is a hidden, buried gem. It is so good.
So
I can't like you can't believe Power Stone hasn't been remade. I can't believe No One Lives Forever hasn't been remade.
Yeah.
I think the only real way to play it right now, outside from like cracking it on PC, is like the PS2 version or something.
Really?
Which is super expensive to find.
Ugh. Like
That game is great.
Monolith, come on, guys. You got to do some remakes or send it to someone to do it and do it justice, please, because those games are so good. Like Fear. Why don't they do Fear again? That game, like the slow-mo, the horror genre, it was so good. So good.
Yeah, when there was the rumor of Xbox possibly acquiring WB because they were rumored to be for sale or whatever, and everybody was saying like, "Oh man, Rocksteady," or "Oh, like what's it called? NetherRealm."
Yes.
Like I think those two studios are amazing, but I was like, "Oh, Monolith." Monolith out of the WB studios is really the only one to make extremely good games without using Warner Brothers IP.
Yeah.
Which isn't part of the sale. So that's why I was super hyped for them.
Yeah. For sure. And it's they just have a talented bunch of a talented team, very talented team, it seems like. So
and they haven't released anything in a while too, so they're due because they're not. I thought they were working on Gollum, but I thought I saw something the other day that said they weren't. So I'm really curious what they're working on because I think the last thing that they brought out was Shadow of War, which was a launch title for the One X.
Yeah,
which was a while ago. I think that's 2017, 2018.
Like I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, so they're kind of due for something.
Yeah. Any day now, please.
Yeah. So that kind of brings us to the introduction of a little subscription service called Xbox Game Pass. Do you remember do you remember where you were when you heard the news that Microsoft is going to give you all these games for completely free? As everyone likes to say.
Right. There was a cost, of course. I mean, and of course they tried to get people into the system by saying, "Oh, pay $1 and you can get it for a month and try it out." I didn't join the service very early on. I think I started, or I think I got the subscription once they opened it up to PC as well. Because at the time, I think I just had the Xbox One. And then I was like, I don't really want to play it on here. I'll play it on my PC. And yeah, it's just, the service has just grown unbelievably. Like it's gotten to the fact where I am, anytime a game comes out on Xbox, I'm like, is it coming to Game Pass? Will it be on Game Pass? That's the only thing. Like that's why I held on for so long to, because Hades was one of those games where I was like, oh, this game's it's coming to Game Pass. Like I'm not going to pay for this game because I know it's coming. And it did. They did it. So
there's even like phantom Game Pass games where like you see the game revealed at like a showcase or something, and it never says anywhere in the trailer that it's coming to Game Pass. But you just expect it's coming to Game Pass because everything comes to Game Pass. And then when it launches, you're like, wait, this is not on Game Pass? And you're just like, what? That actually happened to me with Chorus, which is coming out really soon.
Okay. And it's just cool. Like just because it's not just AAA games, like the opportunity to play these little games and give these smaller developers an opportunity to shine. And like I had the opportunity, like that game Carrion, I don't know if you played that. That game was I heard a little bit about it. I was like, you know what, let me try it. It's on Game Pass, what do I have to lose? I loved it. It was such a cool concept, being the monster and playing in that perspective was a great idea. And it probably would have been, if it was just like released as a regular game on like Steam or just like on the shelf of GameStop, it probably would have just been crushed. Like probably wouldn't have been gotten any sort of hype on it. So that's the stuff that I really appreciate about the service.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the underrated, or like the part of Game Pass that people don't really talk about a lot, or like almost ever. I don't think I've ever really heard like a really in-depth conversation about this, and that is the not just people getting a chance to try your game with no barriers,
Mhm.
but it's also like a way to kind of have your game be more visible and like stand out.
Right.
There's so many games that get released every day, and there was like a leak, or I think it was a leak. You call it a leak if you want, but like there was a guy who was kind of a game developer, and he was ranting on Twitter about some of the policies that X console has. And he clarified that X console was not Nintendo or Xbox, so you can kind of deduct what one he was talking about from that.
Yeah.
But he was talking about how, as an indie game team who's probably struggling financially as it is, because like being an indie developer is a very risky proposition in general.
Yeah.
If you release a game, it's instantly buried in this massive catalog of like good games and a shit ton of bad games. And to get your game kind of elevated to the point where someone could stumble across it costs thousands and thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. But if you put your game on Game Pass, all of a sudden that kind of storefront that you're getting buried in is, instead of being like 20,000 titles, it's 200 titles. And then add on top of that the no barrier, where you're like just clicking a button to download, or in some cases just clicking a button to play it with xCloud. The amount of visibility you get and the amount of kind of users that you'll get into your game is just staggering. So there's more to it than just getting a check from Microsoft and kind of adding a safety net in terms of your sales. It also gives you a ton of visibility, because that person might see your game and where they otherwise would have missed it. They might stream that game or tell their friend about that game or post a screenshot of that game that someone else might see who wouldn't have seen it on another store where it's buried, and then find it and play it, or what have you. Because at the end of the day, like, publishers obviously want you to buy games, but developers want you to play games. And Game Pass is the best way to get somebody to play a game, in my opinion. And if you want to support the developers, like, that's how you do it, is by playing their games. So a service that makes it easier to do that is good for them, in my opinion.
For sure. I'm with you.
That's my Game Pass TED Talk. Thank you for coming.
Well done.
Yeah. So we haven't really gone in depth to it with a ton of different games in this era, but is there anything that really stands out as being or era defining, or would you say it's the service in general that is the most defining thing about this era?
It really is a service, man. It's just because I've had the opportunity to try so many games now. It's been awesome. It's just been I've like, it's gotten me more excited about gaming in general. Just instead of just like one particular game, like the Metal Gears or the God of Wars or whatever, or Halo and whatnot. Like those are like, those powerhouses are there, but it's like there's the opportunity for all these other systems, or rather all these other games to really shine. And that's what's cool. That's what's really cool about this.
Exactly. So since we just spent a lot of time talking about Game Pass, I feel like it would be kind of in probably your best interest, but maybe a good interest of the show as well, to maybe explain how Game Pass influenced you and Tom to start a podcast in the first place, because that's technically something that is gaming related and happened in this era. So
yeah. Well, Tom and I did have a radio show back in college, and we dabbled in podcasting before. We had one show that didn't last very long, and I wanted to reconnect with him and wanted to try and do something. And like I said, I talked about this, talked to him about Game Pass, because I don't think he had it at the time. And we were just like, this is just really cool, like being able to play a different game every week and not drop $50-$60 or $30, whatever the cost is, and be out that money for that game. Because if it sucked, then it's like, okay, well, I'm out I'm out that money now. So being able to, like, this is really like the Blockbuster, right? You go in and you pick the game, you take it out for the however many, or GameFly, really, right? Like Blockbuster, you had to play, you only played it for like 5 days or whatnot. But anyway, the point is that it was like we had the ability to talk about these games, like, because we both love games, and being able to take the time to connect again, and to take the time to talk about these the games that are out there, and being able to do it in a short amount of time was always, it was just like was kind of the reason for this podcast. So it's been fun, and of course, being able to connect with people like yourself, Eric, and being able to see everyone's like love for games and the passion for it has been awesome as well.
So you're saying one half of the 1 hour, one decision world's number one 30-minute or less Xbox Game Pass podcast, one half of the members didn't even know what Game Pass was?
I mean,
typical Raphael fan has to guide the team
right
into the promised land.
He knew of it, but he was just like, oh, all right, well, I guess.
What's Tom's favorite Ninja Turtle? It's probably Leo, right? It's so typical. I know it's Leo. You don't even have to answer.
No, I think it's actually Donatello. I think it's Donatello.
So he was MLG Pro at Turtles in Time. He was just doing that.
Probably, but it was the way he explains it. He's like, any turtle that whose ends with an O is good. So you take that as yeah, take that as you will. But
I refuse to take that. That's blasphemy, and I don't think he is a real Ninja Turtles fan.
It is what it is, but I'm doing this podcast with them, so I have to be somewhat cordial.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of the 4 quarters of your gaming life so far. We have gone back and discussed all the games, all the consoles, and all the memories that you had in your gaming life up to this point. And now that all of this is fresh in your mind, I have a couple extra questions to ask. If possible, after just discussing your entire history with video games, can you pick a favorite game or a most impactful game? And I'll even throw you a bone here. I'll even let you choose a game series.
Okay. Favorite game, impactful game. Oh, man.
If someone walked up to you on the street and said, hey, what's your favorite game? This is the first time you've been asked this question.
I mean, like, no, it's just like, all right, I'm gonna say Splinter Cell.
Splinter Cell, the first one?
The first one.
Okay.
The first one, because like I went back and because I think Ubi had a sale on a couple of them on the PC, and it was I think the Splinter Cell collection, which they need to bring this game back, for crying out loud. Except if they do it like the last one, what was it?
Blacklist.
Blacklist. Oh,
you didn't like Blacklist?
Okay.
That was actually a return to form. That was more like Splinter Cell than the last few.
It wasn't Blacklist. It was the other one.
Conviction came out before Blacklist, which I think is what you're talking about.
Yes, Conviction. I'm talking about
that one was more like Uncharted.
Yeah, and I was like, "What is this?" Because so in that the Conviction was part of this bundle, and so I played the original. And I was like, "This game still holds up. It's so good." And then I went to Conviction. I was like, "Oh, like they tried too much to be like the Bourne Identity and all that stuff." I was like, all right, I'm out." Like it just didn't play as well. Like I liked the ideas of it, but it just didn't execute well.
Yeah, that was their kind of, when you jump from Assassin's Creed. I don't know if you're an Assassin's Creed fan, but for those that are, you probably can relate to this. When you go from Assassin's Creed, like Unity and Syndicate, and you jump to Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey, there's a huge shift in the gameplay. They're not the same games at all.
Right.
And that's what happened with Splinter Cell from like Chaos Theory and Double Agent to Conviction. Although the difference is that with Origins and Odyssey, those in their own rights were really, really good games.
Yeah.
And they actually attracted like a kind of a new audience. as well as a good chunk of the old audience, so they kind of survived. And also, games cost a lot more money to make now, so it's a much bigger financial hit if it does completely fail. So they kind of willed it into sustenance a little bit there. But with Conviction, it wasn't received as well, and it was easier, I think, to kind of revert back. And then the flip flop kind of ruined it for the new fans, because I think Conviction on its own, if it was called like Tom Clancy's Conviction and it starred like Fish Sammer, it would be probably one of the better games that they've made. Like, it was a very good game in its own right. It's just when you attach a name to it, people have specific expectations for what the game's going to be, and it just wasn't that.
And Blacklist, was that the one where Michael Ironside did not do the voice?
Yeah, I think it was Troy Baker probably, or maybe Kiefer Sutherland, or he did Sam Fisher.
Okay.
Or maybe a random guy. I think it might have been Troy Baker, but yeah, it wasn't Michael Ironside. Although he did come back to voice Sam Fisher in some of the DLC for Ghost Recon Wildlands.
So annoying.
Yeah. But Blacklist was a lot more stealthy and actually brought back Spies vs. Mercs. But again, they fumbled at the goal line because they released that game like in the summer of 2013, like a couple months before brand new consoles that weren't backwards compatible came out, and they didn't release a next gen version of it. So if they held that release, if they delayed that game for like a few months and released a cross-gen version like they did with Assassin's, well, I don't think Assassin's Creed Blacklist was delayed, but Assassin's Creed Blacklist definitely benefited from being a launch window title for PS4 and Xbox One, because it was one of the best games you could play at the time. And if Blacklist would have come out, same thing with Halo 4, by the way. If they released a Halo 4 beta in 2012 and then released the full game with all the feedback in 2013 as a launch title, it's the best Halo probably ever, at least up to this point. But like Don Matrick was in charge. There's a lot of problems. Like
Donnie.
I'm not going to jump all the way in. I'm just going to dip my toe into this. So that was a mistake he made. Like everyone trashes him, right, for Connect Sports, whatever. But people don't trash him enough for the fact that he could have saved Halo 4. Like they basically dumpstered Halo 4 because he just needed something for holiday 2012. Bad idea. That could have been a huge launch game. He also could have had Destiny as an exclusive, but he let Bungie go. He also could have bought Respawn and had Titanfall be an exclusive, which would then also give them Apex as an exclusive. He could have bought Remedy, which would have gave us Control and whatever they're doing next as an exclusive. He didn't do any of that stuff. Like
you really dropped the ball, huh?
Yeah, it wasn't just TV, sports. It was also, I'm going to make Gears, Halo, and Forza every single 3 years. There's going to be one of those games. And that's all we're going to do. And anyway, my toes back out. I don't want to talk about Don anymore. Final question. This is what I ask everybody.
Okay.
After talking about from day one till now, your history with video games, and everything's fresh in your mind. I know I just repeated myself, but do you feel like you enjoy video games more in the first quarter of your life, or do you feel like you enjoy them more now in the present day after all that's happened in between?
I want to say the present. I want to say the present because I'm able to for well, maybe not in my terms, but at least people are able to talk to me intelligently about games, and I can be like, yes, you're right. Like, especially talking to you, Eric, you've got it seems like a Rolodex of information in video games. And it's cool to be able to get that kind of passion from people, and it really feeds into my excitement for games. So definitely now, because even now I can go back and play those old games and appreciate what they've done to kind of lay the foundation for everything that we have now. So, it's definitely, I just love playing games. I love that we can talk about this and, make a podcast about this. We're doing it. We're just two adults conversing about video games. Like, who would have thought that this is something that could be possible, right? Everyone's like, oh, these are children's things. These are just toys. Just throw them aside, and it's, that's not the case anymore. So
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even have known you if not for Game Pass.
right.
Game Pass brought us together, man. Everything's included
Totally.
in Game Pass.
Totally. Friends
and everything. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. That's kind of interesting because like we had kind of touched on it a little bit, but in the beginning, like at least in quarter one, quarter two, the main draw for you in terms of video games and why you enjoy them was being able to hang out with people on the couch and play some games like Contra or Turtles in Time, like different beat 'em ups or like fighting games like Power Stone, Capcom SNK, Marvel vs. Capcom, rhythm games. I don't think Parappa the Rapper is multiplayer, but I think you probably played that a lot with other people in the room because it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Even like N64, like you rented N64s. You probably didn't rent an N64 to go in your room by yourself and play, which is probably why you rented it with games like Smash and doing Gretzky, hockey and Bomberman. When the next era, the quarter three genres of consoles happen, a lot of people were kind of pulled away from each other because they were able to connect with Xbox Live. But you really like games like Rock Band that really brought people back into the living rooms together. But now, as online gaming is kind of just like breathing, it's just a way of life. It's how people expect to play games now. Technically, you are actually able to play with more people. Like like we played Sea of Thieves. That's not something that we probably would have been able to do, at least definitely not in quarter one, quarter two. And I'm probably not the only person that you've met outside of your kind of geographical location that you're able to connect with and play and talk to and become friends with and stuff like that. So it does make sense because, like you had mentioned earlier, like being able to bring people together to play was what you originally loved about playing video games, and now you can bring more people than ever together to play, whether it's meeting them randomly, meeting them through podcasts, Twitter, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, this is like the new age version of that coming together in that, back in the late, back in the 90s and early 2000s. So, I've evolved. I've accepted that people are busy, and we have our things going on in our lives with families and work and stuff like that. So this is, I have to adapt to that thing. But in that, I've gotten the opportunity to meet people like yourself and really connect with people. So it's been fun. It's been really cool.
Awesome. Well, that's all I got for now. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining me on Insert Coin. But before we say our goodbyes, I'd like to give you the floor to let everyone know where they can find you, where they can find 1H1D and all that fun stuff. So take it away.
Yeah. So again, Eric, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's been super fun. And myself and Tom we do this podcast about 1 Hour 1 Decision, and our podcast is available on all major podcast platforms: Apple, Spotify, Google, etc. You can find me on Twitter at TC1H1D, and we just actually launched our YouTube channel. So we'll be posting our audio episodes and video format in YouTube as well. So we're going to be doing that, and we play our games on Twitch at twitch.tv/1H1D. So you can see us if we don't have a set schedule. We'll just randomly pop up and play our games. So, and we only play for an hour. So there's that too. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. That's where we are in the interwebs.
Awesome. And I also just want to take a quick second to thank everyone who managed to make their way all the way to the end of this episode of Insert Coin. Really means a lot to me that you were checking this out. If you enjoyed the show or have any comments or critiques, please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at GamePositiveYT. Or if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment in the section below. I respond to all comments, all messages, DMs are open. Hey, and while you're there, if you are on YouTube, feel free to subscribe. We just passed 100 subscribers and we're en route to 200. So I appreciate any and all subscriptions or likes. And you know what? If this reaches 30 listeners, I think Chris will buy his friend a copy of Battletoads for NES. Until next time, everybody, remember to have fun out there, and I'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.